So the markets have been pretty quiet, and this is exactly where traders can get absolutely wrecked, guys. So today I'm looking at BTC. I want to give you some precise entries for longs and shorts. We're covering tons of else as well. Let's go. Guys, and remember, as always, hit that like, hit the bell, hit the subscribe. You can see I'm not in my studio at the moment. I'm currently still traveling, but I am watching the market. So this show that you're watching now is a slight pre-record. So when you are watching this, you're probably 45 minutes behind or so, but these setups should be valid for quite some time for you guys. So let's jump into it. Let's see what is going down. And you can see old hype is starting to catch up again, 3% up. At the moment, we've had competition from Lighter, some of the other exchanges as well, and Hype has been lagging a bit, but we can see Hype is starting to do a couple of things at the moment for us. So I am focusing on this token today as well for you guys, and I am going to be looking at something like BCH. Is there a narrative brewing on BCH that we need to be watching? Okay, so let's go. Let's jump into BTC. Let's see what is going down. So here is our 2-hour chart at the moment. And I was saying in the Chart Hackers Discord earlier today, things were looking so good in that Asia session. We had a beautiful move from these Asians and it was just unsustainable. And what have they done with BTC? They've come here and they've rejected it at a major area. What is a major area? It's our 50-day MA. It's our bigger 618 pool at our 90,600 region. So we know this is our line in the sand. This is also our previous range high that has been hit multiple times already. So we know this is our top zone for BTC until proven otherwise. Now, in terms of ping pong zones and things like that, what are we watching for possible longs? So you can see this 86,700 region. We've got some beautiful support showing here at the moment. So any dips into this region, let's look for some longs off that zone, maybe a short move to the upside. Now, if the market sweats a little bit harder in the next, say, 12 hours or so, give or take, you are going to be watching 85,700. That is also a nice region. That's a 786. It's going to give us a move, possible confluence here as well for us in that zone. Then if this shit hits the fan completely, guys, we are looking much lower down, 83,500. But in terms of what I'm watching right now, I can see a tight little range at the moment that we are playing in and looking for bounces off the lows, and we are looking for possible shorts at the highs of the range. So if we do get a big move now today, or we start pushing to the upside, where do you want to look? Possible short coming for you, 89,600. That looks pretty decent to me. And then 90,600, guys, that is obviously a bigger short zone for you. Now, this is obviously the lower time frame stuff that we're watching on BTC. Now we're going to jump into a couple of news things and, odds and ends going around in the market. Then I do have altcoins for you. I've got ETH, I've got SOL, I've got a DGen set up on SUI. Is 𝗷𝗿 going to come alive again? We've got BCH, I've spoken about it. Even got some SPX for you guys. And is there a short brewing on this squid, SQD? So stick around. I do have some stuff coming here for you guys. Okay, let's talk, this move we've just had in the last couple of hours gave us 300 million in liquidations. And we are literally feeling this way once again. I think this is so relevant for us at the moment. And you can see Ted Pillows talking about this today with the chop in the market. So we had that beautiful move from the Asians and then a big drop. And look how they are punishing traders here that are holding on too long. And myself included, I held on a little bit long the other day for a chop there on BTC, and you can see we've moved all the way back down. Okay, so we're still waiting for the magical big move, and hopefully that is going to be around the corner for us. Now, a couple of events happening this week. We've got pending home sales. I don't think that's a big market mover. We got Fed FOMC minutes, not necessarily a big mover either. Jobless claims, that could be an interesting one, and then obviously some de-risking probably into Thursday as well with New Year's Day. Okay, so a lot going on here, or not a lot going on in the market, but we do know there's a little bit of murmurs happening around Venezuela and the oil situation. And you can see the Americans at the moment are, letting Chevron move their oil around, but they're blocking everyone else from buying oil or Venezuelan oil. And there's obviously some kind of conflict brewing here. We know it's affecting China as well. So definitely headlines to watch and definite market movers here for us at the moment. Obviously relevant for us is the US oil chart, which we are tracking, and this is the weekly for me at the moment. And I think it's still quite a big drop here, so nothing to worry about just yet, but it's still quite a big drop down into this 52 down to 49 region that I am interested in for a possible big long on this oil. So let's monitor this as we go. I'll obviously keep you guys updated as things tick over. Now, in terms of the S&P, well, we got our sweep of the highs that I was talking about last week, and we've broken all-time highs, and now possible downside coming into, the next couple of days, maybe into early January. And we can see that rejection could bring us down into our support at 6,780. So I'm watching that fresh support zone now on the S&P. Let's see if that one is going to hold. Now, obviously, weakness on the S&P might not be the best situation for crypto, and that is going to tie into this Bitcoin 3-day chart that I'm going to talk about as well in a couple of minutes. Now, another big one that's trading like an absolute shitcoin at the moment is silver. This thing's been absolutely ripping, and it's off the back of the Chinese changing some of the rules around their silver supply. Okay, so 13% of the world's silver supply is now going offline. So they're stopping their silver exports next week. Now, it's not that dramatic. There's going to be some news. I mean, there's going to be some rules and regulations about who can do that type of thing. But obviously, the market has responded really well to silver. Now, what does this mean for us? We're trading altcoins, we're trading BTC. How does this affect us generally? Well, we know gold is obviously pumping. We know silver's done really well as well, and platinum. Now, here's an interesting tweet and something to think about here. This guy, I've never heard of this guy, 941, but he says, let me be clear, sell gold, sell silver, sell platinum, buy Bitcoin and Bitcoin miners. Maybe it is time for a rotation out of these metals. We know these metals have sucked up all our liquidity and all the altcoin fun, and rightly so. They've been pumping beautifully, and if you're a bit of a degen, why wouldn't you have chased a little bit of silver or gold along the way? So right now, possible rotation, murmurs coming on, and definitely something to watch for early January or February 26. Are we going to get some kind of action? Now, in terms of BTC on the 3-day, there's a couple of things that are pretty important to pay attention to. Now, obviously, what I've been saying to the Chart Hackers Discord over the last couple of weeks is, the big zone for me is the 78 into 74,000. This is this lower region over here. And for me, that will probably be the most bullish scenario if we can get this move in the next, say, week or two out of BTC. This will create for me a monster bear trap. Imagine how bearish everyone is going to be down here when the price starts bleeding into that region, and that should give us a nice sustainable push to the upside. Now, what is a sustainable push to the upside? So for me, I'm still not looking much further than this 108, 109 region, and that will simply be our right shoulder of a possible monster head and shoulders. Okay, but we'll deal with that when we need to. Right now, 3-day chart says big support 78 to 75. Let's watch that area. If we drop into that zone, let's be brave enough to look for some longs in that area. Now, in terms of the danger zones on the 3-day, you can see we've literally chopped around this region since mid to late November. This has been our resistance, 91,300. It remains so until proven otherwise. Okay, so remember, guys, all these charts, they are sitting in the Chart Hackers Discord for you guys. They will be available after the show for you, and the team is obviously in there dropping setups and stuff pretty much all day long at the moment. Even though things are quiet now with the holidays, we still have a lot of activity in the Chart Hackers Discord. Now, let's get into some of these altcoins. And before we jump into the alts, one thing we need to watch, Bitcoin dominance. Look at this thing. It's bouncing off major support. So we know this is an absolute war zone for us in terms of alt trading and things like that. We're on major support now for Bitcoin dominance. And obviously strong dominance means Bitcoin is going to be outperforming some of the altcoins. And remember, we don't mind if Bitcoin is pumping to the upside, but if Bitcoin is flat or falling over, that obviously creates a lot of altcoin pressure, and these alts can start losing level. So what I suggest, as always, keep your eyes on this dominance chart. This is a good one to follow, especially if you are an altcoin trader. You want to be paying tons of attention. Another nice marker for you on altcoins is our 4-hour RSI heat map. And you can see we had a beautiful move in that beginning Asia session yesterday, and now things are tailing off a little bit, and a lot of these alts are moving back into their chop zone. Some of the outliers here, Squid, SQD, and STBL, looking like possible outliers. So I thought let's just quickly take a look at these, because I've got a possible short zone coming for you guys on the Squid. Look at that. That small little blue line you see over there is the formation of a 200-day moving average. This thing is finally starting to develop on the chart, and you can see our upside danger zone macro 382 at 126. So possible short here on SQD coming at 126. Look for that pump into that zone. You can see our oscillator is telling us we are getting super overcooked at the moment. So keep your eyes on that. That could be a fun one. Just manage your risk accordingly. You don't want to get squeezed out here, and try and make sure you are trading in isolated positions, small positions, and low leverage, guys. Okay, another one is this STBL, and you can see we are pumping into our macro 236. This is an interesting area for me, and we are also getting super overcooked on the 12-hour on this STBL. So there's a possible short brewing for you guys here, a little squeeze into that region, 67, 64, somewhere there. You could get that move. Remember, we're looking for a 15 to 25% drop in some of these alts when they pump into these big zones, but obviously it comes with a degree of risk. So manage your risk accordingly. The backup zone for me, guys, 82 looks pretty interesting. Look at that VWAP, look at that macro 382, look at that undercarriage there. So enough happening in terms of that STBL. Okay, so we'll stick that in the Discord for you guys. Now let's get into some of the regular alts. We're talking ETH, Sol, Sui, Bitcoin Cash, Aave. I've got Zcash for you. Funnily enough, Zcash has been an outperformer. Now, is this simply, a lower high in play? And is this negative trade going to carry on? Are they going to send this one lower? So I'm looking at this one closely, and we're going to see if we can map out a plan for you guys. So let's start with ETH on the 2-hour, and you can see pretty similar trading action to BTC. Look at this. We saw Bitcoin move into a monster rejection zone, and so did ETH. And funnily enough, we've got our 50-week MA in this region as well. I just want to see if we can, no, I don't have it on this chart for you guys, but we know we've got our 50-week moving average on ETH sitting in this region as well. So we had multiple points of confluence to tell us that this was a major rejection zone. So this one is held out nicely. You can see there's our range high, the 50-day, the 50-week, everything coming into play. So what do we do now? Where is our next possible long after that rejection? So I think for me, especially from a DGen perspective, the two hot zones for me on ETH are going to be this 2,888 zone that you're going to be watching, and then we've got 2,840 looking like an interesting region for me as well. Now, the reason I like that is we've got our rising trend, we've got our 786 as well, bringing up some support for us. So any weakness or any dips in the market, look for a DGen long 2,888-2840 looking super interesting to me on ETH. Okay, if we start losing that region again, we're going to have to start looking lower. We're going to start looking at higher time frame things, but right now in terms of a DGen basis, that is how I see things for the moment on ETH. And a pretty similar situation on Solana, guys, as well. We had a beautiful bounce. I gave the Chart Hackers Discord a trade on the 24th of December. We had a Sol trade, Aave trade play out there for us as well. ETH also bounced off the zone I gave in the Discord, and you can see a Sol is now working this 119 major support region. This is our weekly support zone. So we have confluence here of a local fib, and we've got the Sol weekly levels in play at 119. Now, in terms of round number 2 and a possible DGen play for you guys, 786 fib, rising trend, looking super interesting to me, 121.5 into 120. So that's a pretty DGen basis trade. Your risk is about 1% in that area. If you are prepared to let it sweat a little bit more, you can push your risk to about 2.5%, give or take. But right now, in terms of the DGen stuff, 121.5 into 120 looking like a long for me on Sol. And then in terms of the oscillator, you can see our 2-hour has lost our horizontal, and typically in these types of situations we start seeing that acceleration to the downside. So trying to be super patient here. I think we can get Sol into this box in the next few hours. So 121.5, 120, watch that area. And then backup zone, weekly support is 119, and you've got your wick lows at 116.8. Okay, so just be careful, guys, manage your risk. Then a DGen trade here for you. And I'm about to take this one on 2-bit. I've got some orders waiting for me lower down. I'm tracking Sui on the 1 hour, and I'm simply looking for a reversal here on Sui. So you can see our oscillator is about to print divergence if we can print a new low on Sui. So I'm tracking this one super closely. What I'm looking for here is a small little DGen dip for me into the VWAP, into the order block, and into this 0.5 fib. So something like this, and then a pop from Sui. Don't necessarily need to be a new high. I'm just looking for a little move here. We can easily get something like that playing out on Sui. So I'm trying to be patient here on 2-bit. I've got my orders waiting, and the entry here for me is anything from 1434 into about 142, looking pretty interesting to me on 𝗬𝗆. So just looking for that bounce. It's a degen play, guys. The risk is going to be around about 1% as well. So these are super degen plays. You can see I'm on 𝗕𝗵𝗿𝗁 here. I've got my limit orders waiting. Just want to see this bleed into the zone, pick up here, and then give us a little bounce. Okay, so something to watch there. Then in terms of BCH, now what am I talking about? I never trade this BCH thing, but I'm hearing some of the other guys talking about BCH. Is there a possible narrative coming, or a narrative trade coming on BCH about being quantum computer safe, or whatever the story is, guys? As it starts unfolding, I'll obviously cover it on the show with a little bit more detail, but there might be a narrative coming on BCH. So if that is the case, yes, we need to potentially look at a couple of zones higher up. And right now on the weekly chart, you can see BCH does have a little bit of room to breathe. We could see 690, 803, even 1,100 looks like a zone of interest on BCH. So if this narrative is going to come into play, can this thing possibly trade the way Zcash traded when that narrative kicked on? So it's definitely of interest to me, and I want to start tracking this for you guys. And, no better place to start than a little degen entry that could possibly turn into something a little bit more exciting at a later date. So right now, on a degen basis, what do I see? I've got BCH on the 2-hour printing me a reversal. Okay, so you can see our oscillator is giving us our first reversal print. We can see a similar situation actually on the 1-hour time frame. And in terms of zones of interest, well, I'm quite liking the 600 region, and I'm quite liking this 590. So I'm not trying to be too fussy with what we get out of this. I do think we can get something like this out of BCH over the next couple of hours, and then maybe a bounce in that area, maybe a little bit more of a push to the upside. And who knows, if the market turns a little bit bullish, people might start moving onto this narrative that could start expanding then. And remember, if we start breaking a major level like this, we could get a little bit of momentum on BCH. So on a degen basis, you can try lock in a couple of trades, and maybe they turn into something a lot bigger. Obviously, guys, just protect your risk along the way. That might take a couple of goes to get this thing going, but 600 and 591 looking like zones of interest for me on BCH, and very similar to 𝗬𝗿. Now I've got 2 trades set up on 𝗶𝗆 at the moment, and 𝗬𝗿 is another one of them. I gave this trade on the Chart Hackers Discord on I think it was on the 24th of December, and we got a nice little move out of 𝗬𝗿. And are we going to get round 2? Now there has been a little bit of FUD around this thing. This, I don't really cover the fundamentals that much on these things, but there was a vote and things like that on 𝗬𝗿. This should have now come to an end, and let's see, if some of the pressure gets relieved. We also know a big whale sold quite a big 𝗬𝗿 position not too long ago, and you can see the resultant candle was from his selling over there. So are we going to get a bounce on 𝗬𝗿? Well, it remains to be seen, but right now in terms of levels of interest, you can see this 148 into 146.5 looks pretty decent as a support zone, and you can see our 2-hour is starting to move to the bottom area. So I'm looking for some kind of bounce on this 𝗬𝗿. So I've got these 2 trades waiting for me on 𝗶𝗆 at the moment. Here's BCH in front of you. I've taken a small buy here where we are on this current level, and then lower down I've got another order at 591, and I've done the same thing for 𝗬𝗿 over here. You can see I've jumped into this position and looking for a little push to the upside. Now I'm sitting at about, my entry is about 150 at the moment. Okay, so small isolated positions here. Let's see if we do get something out of these guys over the next couple of days. Then this is a pretty interesting one, Hype. Okay, now Hyperliquid has got competition. We know there's tons of other DEXs out there. Hype is obviously one of the bigger ones, but the competition are things like Lighter, for example, and we know they've got a TGE coming out, and there's been a lot of interest in that Lighter token. Has that taken some of the shine away from Hype? So definitely one to watch. But you can see at the moment, Hype is looking a little bit more interesting. We've got an inverse head and shoulders starting to print now on Hype, and it's starting to tell me, if we do get a push higher, it might open up quite a nice short opportunity in this 27.7, 28 region on Hype. So something to look forward to perhaps later on. You can see we're printing spider webs now in terms of divergence. So if we do get a second push here, we most likely end up with a lower high once again on the oscillator, and that could obviously send Hype into this bigger zone up here, into this 27.8 region, and then a possible short in that area. So if you're sitting long, you can see inverse head and shoulders looking okay. Might actually squeeze a little bit higher to the upside, and then look out for a possible rejection or short in that 27.8 region. Okay, so that is a danger zone there. Set your alarm on in that area. Could be an interesting one later on for us. Okay, so and obviously don't forget, we've got gravity cooking up at the moment. We are busy farming gravity points here. If you're trading on the gravity DEX, it's going to be very similar to Hype and Lighter and how they handle those things. If you're trading, you're earning points and those types of things. So don't forget, guys, there's a link in the description here. If you want to trade gravity, it's one of the DEX. You could participate in that airdrop that they could be giving out for you guys. Okay, let's take a look at two more. I've got Zcash. Is it time, for this thing to roll over? Let's pay attention to this. So Zcash on the 8 hour, pretty interesting one. You can see we're getting pretty hot again. This thing has exploded, but in terms of our oscillator, it is getting pretty overcooked at the moment. So there are two options that I'm looking at the moment. One of them is the easy trade, which is our easy rejection here in this current region. So 540, what happens here? Just pushes a little bit and then starts falling over, moves back down to trend, and then possibly a long from that region. So easy trade is a possible rollover here. Anything up to 545, 550, looking like a danger area, possible rejection on Zcash. And then you've got the slightly trickier one, which is the bearish divergence trade. And that for me takes Zcash a little bit higher. So what do we need to look for here? Possible second push, lower high on the oscillator, bang, and then you're going to be looking at 595 as your possible short zone on Zcash. All I know is this thing is getting very volatile now because we've got a lot of mixed views between shorters and longs and things like that. There's a lot of guys saying, is this trade over? And there's a lot of guys trying to short this guy. So might get some squeezes, but 595, that's the bearish divergence trade for me. 540 to 550 is the lower time frame possible rollover on Zcash right now. But you can see it's done well. But moving back down to the trend is also quite reasonable. If you want to put down into those lows, that is obviously possible for us on Zcash. Okay, so just be careful with how you are playing things at the moment. Then in terms of SPX, well, interesting one. I had a when entry set up on this guy, which has been lower down, and we've never hit it. It was somewhere in that region over there, and been waiting, and this thing just hasn't come to the party. So right now I've re-looked at SPX. I'm trying to watch these oscillators. I'm trying to figure out, where can we get a high percentage move? And the longer I watch this thing, this zone is starting to look super interesting to me on SPX. This is this 46 region. So 46.5 into say 456, looking pretty interesting on SPX. So, I don't want to give you guys tons of deviant trades here because, what if we just roll over? So what I want to say is set your alarms, be patient on this one, put your alarm in at 47, for example, and keep your eyes on this possible bounce coming later on SPX. Let's look for that type of move into that zone. Okay, so you could get a little bit of chop along the way, but that looks like a reasonable zone for me. Okay, so guys, there's a little summary. That's kind of what I'm watching at the moment. I'm not trading tons of things. I'm trying to let things play out. You can see I'm also on vacation at the moment, so it's slightly more challenging, to run around and trade everywhere. But I'll be back tomorrow for you guys. I'll drop an update, and let's see how this year is going to end, and let's see how this year is going to take off beginning of Jan. Okay, so I'll be back tomorrow, guys. Good luck out there. Catch you later.